Okay, this is not a lecture on Lucretius, and of course you missed the lecture last week on Aristotle. A clarification: it seems they don't have his lecture on the web from last year. They kept the one from the year before, the 2016. So your teachers now will give you the link. The link was sent to them. There's a link if you wish to attend the, you want to watch the Waddah Nasr's lecture on Aristotle. A link will be given to you in class by your teachers next time. By the way, the reason why he didn't come, he had to be taken to the ER, so this is a professor who never misses an appointment, so it was just an event that nobody could help. So today I'm in a situation of having to kind of fill in for a little bit of this whole section that I consider a section. From the time you move from literature and epic and mythos, the use of the imagination, characters, poetry, drama, from that world into the world of logos, or rational account, rather than giving the mythos account, mythos meaning here using all the powers of your expression, but not in an analytical fashion. Now we're in this other section of this 201 course, we're into philosophy, and therefore the use of a rational account. That's what the meaning of logos. We get psychology, we get sociology. The logos part means to give a rational account of whatever it is you're studying. So from giving a poetic, imaginative approach to an understanding of what life is all about, and I hope you've gotten something of what it means for life to be understood, basically as tragic, as not made for the human being, as the problems of how much of it can we know, how much of it can we not know. It's so vague and complex and big and large, and how can anyone's human reason really know what life is all about? Okay, you saw that in the tragic accounts, really, or in Thucydides, in the very tragic fact that we are fated by our nature to never be able to have the kind of democracy that was presented in the speech of Pericles, that human nature, always ready to offend, now showed itself in its true colors, if you've read the Civil War in Corcyra, as an enemy to the best. And therefore this hope, this Apollonic hope, the Apollonian hope of living, seek truth and seek to do your best with whatever you have, the two commandments of Apollo, that in fact, in the tragic world, that's all you have. Do it, live life that way, but don't expect reward, don't expect success. Do it for its own sake. Don't do everything just for money or for success or for power. Do things for their own sake. That's what makes us human, not just for what it is we want to get out of something. So in the kind of a tragic world, Thucydides, of course, puts it now into a rational account in history. But it's the same basic notion, that basically we are fated by our nature now, not by the cosmos or the gods or anything like that, but by our very human nature. We are fated never to really be able to live the ideals of democracy. So we have to look around for some other more realistic form of government. And at one point in the history of the Peloponnesian War, he says, there was one place where I think, they got it right. It was a kind of a good mixture between oligarchy and democracy. So a good mixture between Athena's democratic ideals in Pericles' funeral speech and, the Spartan discipline on the other side, that they had somehow managed at one point, in one place in the Greek world during the Peloponnesian War. Thucydides claims that maybe this is the sort of thing we have to be looking for, because we'd like to live in a democracy and we'd like to live according to the principles that Pericles mentions in the funeral speech, but we have this human nature in us, that's lust for the greed, the pleonexia, whatever happens, finally we turn it into something for self-interest. And you see that in the debate at Melos, when Thucydides presents to you how roles have been reversed. The so-called democratic Athenians are preaching power. Everything is power. And the Melians are trying to remind them of You know, Habibi, you're the ones who taught everybody about democracy. What's happened? And so the corrupted Athenian democracy now claims that basically but that's nature. You know, nature is that way. Okay, then if that is the case, then we wind up basically with tragic looks at life. Life is fundamentally tragic. In what ways? Okay, either the cosmos is getting in there and you never know what's going to happen to you like an Oedipus, or your own human nature is such that you can't, you know, fate. There's something fated that you cannot get past. But fate does not mean fatalism. Please, that's very important for this semester and for all the time. Fate does not mean fatalism, except unless if there's an ideology that tells you you're all determined and everything is that's fatalism. But fatalism means to sit back and just, you know, accept whatever happens because, you know, that's fated. No, most of these great cultures that believed in some kind of a fate, meaning a limit, a severe limit to our being able to do everything we want, they were anything but fatalistic. So they gave you an Oedipus, they gave you a Gilgamesh, they gave you a Pericles. So please keep that in mind about the tragic world. It's not simple, it's not free or determined. We're determined, where no one of us is infinite or self-sufficient. We're all determined by something. But the key, what makes life interesting in literature and philosophy and everything we do, is that we do have a role to play in what happens. All right, we do have freedom. We have to define what we mean by freedom. There are different understandings of it. But to say we're fatal, you know, it's fate, and fate means that we can do nothing about it, is to miss the point of this whole exercise. And so I wanted to focus on that. Now we're moving into the world with Plato, the world of Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and Lucretius, and Virgil, in fact. But the three main ones are, of course, Socrates, Plato. Plato presents Socrates. Socrates never wrote anything. He was just a great muse for everything that came after him. Aristotle then makes it more into a system. And Aristotle was not a Greek, and so he wasn't as polis-focused. So for him, if you remember with Plato, the great, a true human being is one who seeks the fullness of knowledge as much as possible. The philosopher, philosophy, but each one of us can seek whatever our own minds are fit to seek, but we should do it according to what Apollo has said, in the best way possible, ready to sacrifice, and with whatever we have to do our best for the polis, for humanity. If we live like that, then we'll find meaning in life. All right? So basically the rationalist now, the philosophical approach to things is that live according to the way Apollo has told you to. So there's great agreement between the philosophers and the tragedians. But don't believe that the world is against you, that the cosmos is against you. It's what you're doing. And, don't believe what Thucydides has said. It's something built into your nature and you can't do anything about it. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle are telling us the faith in human reason properly used. If we start to use human reason properly, if we start to see how ignorant we are and how much we think we know, if we start to really become human in the way we look at reason, and global and total, not just with self-interest, reason is sufficient to give us happiness, fulfillment, right? And so Socrates in the Apology, which you don't read anymore, but it's a wonderful little dialogue that you should all read, he says about death, I'm not afraid of death, because this corrupt democracy has condemned Socrates to death on trumped up charges. Trumped up, that means false charges, right? Fake news. But trumped on, they want to, they condemn him by jury, you see. This is a democracy. And they vote, and he's condemned to death. But his friends there, the Wasta people, come in to try to help him, because they have some power in the Athenian corrupt democracy. He refuses to break the laws. He refuses to go against his own principles, that we really need to live according to reason, according to laws, and according to things that we can all agree on, and not just live for power and for, if we have a wasta of nepotism and all this, but to really be trying to do our best. He's trying to live the Apollonian 2 commandments, but with the belief that if you do that, you will be happy, you will be fulfilled. So he says, I'm not afraid of death, because if I have been living the right kind of life, then death can be one of, he says a number of things, but the two main ones. It can be a nothing. a long sleep in the nights, that's why should I be afraid of death? And if I've been living a good life, my own reason tells me I should expect that it'll be a great place, a great experience. Why should I think it's going to be Hades, or everybody has to go to some kind of horrible place like you saw in Gilgamesh or you saw in the Odyssey? He breaks through this this fate. This what the philosophers are considering a kind of a reform of the religion. Okay, so the reform of the religion is what Socrates was doing, but they called him an atheist because he was trying to reform them and tell them that basically, these gods and goddesses represent mental realities, things that we can really help us to understand our life if we pursue them properly and really try to understand better what, rationally speaking, what is justice, rationally speaking, what is beauty, rationally speaking, what is goodness. Then we can, but we need to reform the whole of society in such a way that the education system and all the institutions have to be built with this vision in mind. So he was anything but an idealist. He was saying, if you wish to change the mess and the corruption that you've been living through the Peloponnesian War and the execution of your greatest thinker, then we have to do what you read in the Republic. We have to see whether we can't dialogue about justice and what people seem to believe about it, and what the sophist then says. It's all power, sophists. This is the Athenians in Melos. It's all power, and if you've been reading the Republic. And he then is challenged to give a proper philosophical inquiry into what is justice rationally. And that's what he tries to do in the Republic. And then he says, if we can never apply this in society, then don't blame the cosmos, don't blame your nature, don't blame anything other than that you're not waking up. You're living in a cave, you don't know you're in a cave, you think you have enlightenment. You need to have this shock, this Socratic shock, which will let you see how you're ignorant. Whatever you know is only partial knowledge. You need more and more and more. And if you think you've ever reached final knowledge, that's death. So now we have, this is Socrates and then Plato putting this into his system. And then you've got Aristotle, the one you didn't have a lecture on last time, but just to fit them all in a little bit. Aristotle, not coming in from Athens, he's a Macedonian, doesn't have this same focus on the polis, representing, meaning really a sense of humanity. And so Aristotle's great concern for the political and social life and all of this. But finally, Aristotle's, if you really want to have the fullness of human fulfillment, you must have the mind of a philosopher, and the mind of a philosopher can contemplate everything, the truth and God and the divine and whatever. So contemplation becomes the greatest thing a human can achieve. But because they're all, Plato and Aristotle, are elitists, and that's where you can differ with them in both Plato and Aristotle, if you think that's not true. Only people who are born with the great mind of a philosopher will ever achieve the fullness of human fulfillment. And therefore for Aristotle, because for Plato every soul is immortal and will continue to live, Aristotle comes and says, why would you want to make something immortal? That's only the mind of a philosopher can be immortal. And so immortality for him becomes only the mind of the philosopher, fully developed. That's worth being immortal. And that's, logically you can think that should be immortal. But, my mind or your mind or, anybody else's mind, why would you want it to be immortal? So this is a little bit of sort of a main things that are happening here, because we're not trying to give you specialized courses on these people. We're trying to give you sort of thrusts of thought, of ways the mind goes to try to put together what's this whole world all about, and what's human fulfillment, and what can we do. So if you open up to the very last page of this fly sheet by Professor Samira Khoury, who no longer teaches with us, but she did a lot of work in putting things together. And so when there is nobody to give a Lucretius lecture, this is as good a lecture as a worksheet, because it'll help you introduce you to Epicureanism and Stoicism through Lucretius and Virgil. The two main works left for you are Lucretius and Virgil. And the main one really is Virgil, because Virgil is fully Roman. And we want you to get into the Romans. So if you don't have time, because what we decided to do, because we run out of time because of many events that happen in a semester, that the teacher is free to choose between what they're going to focus on, Lucretius or Virgil, but they should all attend the lecture. That was our common agreement, but we didn't, we're not forcing teachers to do this. Teachers who prefer to have an extra class session have decided not to come to the lecture. And so basically, this lecture is to give you a notion of what's happening in the second part of 201, this thrust towards reason, and that reason can give us the truth about life, all right? But now we'll see different options. You have the Plato option, that reason can give you a full life, if only you will change the education system and the institutions in such a way so that every human can discover what is best for them, and that everyone will be working for the best of the polis, of humanity, and so everyone will want to do what they can do best, and not just power and fame and all of this. This is the direction that Plato is putting for that. Don't read Plato as if it's a fixed final thing. This is a journey of discovery. This is a philosophy starting to think about things in a serious way. And so with Aristotle, I've told you now about what happens with Plato and Aristotle. Take a look at the very last page where she has an annex on philosophy. This annex on philosophy, I think, is a very useful item for you in 201. About philosophy. Remember the meaning of philosophy, the love of wisdom. So insofar as you love wisdom, you seek truth, and not just power and self-interest. You're a philosopher in this generic meaning, all right? Philosophers who are specialized philosophers will be people like Plato, Aristotle, Lucretius, and all the philosophers in our philosophy department. This is a specialized way of applying this power we have, or this capacity we have. We seek truth. And Aristotle says this by definition, that we all seek to know. We really do seek truth. And what do we do with truth? That's the other point. That's the mess. It's not something tragic. It's not something built into our nature. It's not something the cosmos has put. It's that we seek truth. We have this impulse to be a lover of wisdom. But the love of power, as Thucydides has said, is there. And so the love of power seems to trump the love of wisdom for Thucydides. Plato is saying it's not. And Aristotle, it's not a question of something in our nature or the cosmos. It's simply we don't know we haven't discovered how to make use of our reason properly. And so the cave of Plato is everybody is using their reason improperly. The greatest philosophers, the greatest scientists, the greatest everybody are all in his cave because they still don't know the basic truth that you are ignorant. So to use reason properly, you have to maintain this understanding that until you reach this level of the philosopher finally, and that's a rare thing, you're on your journey and therefore you're still ignorant. And as soon as you set the bar lower, you are abusing the power of reason. And when you abuse reason for power, then you're really abusing reason. And that's what his cave represents. So we are in a cave today, just like in Plato's day. We are in a cave where most of us, if not all of us, I'm sure you probably don't want to be included, but we all think we know. Before we really know, we all think we know. We're not really seeking truth. We're seeking self-interest. We're seeking power. We're seeking wealth, success, grades, whatever. All right? But so if we go on like this, then the world's going to just be, history will repeat itself. This is Thucydides. Thucydides is saying, if we don't benefit from the things of the past, that's his only hope, that maybe we'll benefit by writing his history. But, the bottom line is in the civil war to Corcyra. Our nature is fighting us. So therefore, history will simply repeat itself and repeat itself and repeat itself. And today, we are still very similar to the days of the Greeks in our humanity. Not in our science and our information, but in our humanity. We're still the same. We're in the cave until we get something to shock us to realize, I always thought that this was this, but now I see, I'm totally wrong. And me, I'm not going to say it to anybody, but I'll see how I can, or the one who is honest and says, I was really wrong. I was wrong about this person. I was wrong about this philosophy. I was wrong about this religion. I was wrong about this scientist. I was wrong about this psychologist. I was wrong. To continue to realize the limit of your reason, then you're using your reason properly. when you do that, then reason is, you can go on. So let's look at what philosophy now becomes here for when philosophy becomes also something more specialized than just the lover of wisdom, whom we hopefully we all are. The Slavish men go hunting for fame or gain. The philosopher for the truth. This is Pythagoras, well before Plato. So the philosopher is the one who follows the Apollo's first command, know thyself, and meaning seek the best, seek the truth. And as you see it in Oedipus, if you see it in the cave story here, they're all seeking their best. The philosophers seeking the truth. But to really seek the truth, you're going to have to suffer. So the philosopher in the cave, has to suffer and struggle to get himself out of this bondage of thinking he knows, just because he's a bright, successful philosopher or astrophysicist or whatever. He has to really resist his own selfish self-worship to really come out and start to know. So that's the start of So philosophy by the time of Plato and Timaeus, 400 years after the first philosophers in Greece, the greatest gift the gods have ever given or will give to mortals, to inquire into the nature of the universe. All right. So as opposed to the message of the tragedians, that the gods have given us a mind that can't penetrate the truth, and therefore we're left alone with just using it for whatever we can get, but we'll never get through the tragic limit. Right? So no, here now the philosophers are saying, on the contrary, if you're thinking about gods, well, the gods have given us the greatest gift, reason, to inquire, the search for truth, the investigation, to inquire into the nature of the universe. That's Plato. Then you get to Aristotle. They philosophized, now the people before him, because now there's about 500 years practically before Aristotle, they philosophized in order to escape from ignorance, the cave. They were pursuing science in order to know. And this is the main line there. And not for any utilitarian end, not for what you get out of it, but because it was worthwhile. Truth is worthwhile in itself. Falsehood is rejectable in itself. You don't have to say, well, what's it going to give me, or what's it going to give me? Just to be a hypocrite, just to be somebody who's only interested in his own interest, is itself self-death. It's human suicide in terms of our humanity. So philosophy is the only free science. All the other sciences exist because they want to get to know something, for nowadays, so that we can use it for something. And that's very important to be able to apply it. That's the extrinsic. But the intrinsic thing of doing science, just to know, Odysseus wanting to go on to the island of Cyclops just to find out about them. All right? This is the philosophical impulse in the human being. To look at things not for any utilitarian end. And now we come to the utilitarian mind. Epicurus, Lucretius. That's Lucretius now. So you can fit Lucretius into this panorama of philosophical understanding. Lucretius is going to tell you that, on the contrary, there is no truth in the sense that a Socrates, a Plato, or an Aristotle have been trying to sell you. But that basically, let's read the thing from Epicurus, who is the Greek ancestor of Lucretius, is the Roman who comes and now markets Lucretius's Epicureanism, because it was never greatly popular in Greece. We'll come back and speak about this in a little while. But now, just to see the way philosophy moves, and you can get more into the way the philosophical world is in later on and up to our own day. So you have the Pythagorases, the Platos, the Aristotles, and people who follow in that kind of a line. But you have the people who follow in the line of Epicureanism. Now, what is Epicureanism? Epicureanism is the development, the intellectual development of hedonism. Anybody ever heard of hedonism? Are any of you hedonists? Sorry to interrupt your conversation back there, but have you ever heard of hedonism? Hello back there. Hi. Hello. I'd love to meet you. You're wonderful. You keep everybody busy. Even when I'm back there, I can see, you're always, you're ahead of everybody. You know everything. You don't need to learn anything. That's wonderful. I'm very happy. But I want to ask you, have you ever heard of hedonism? No, so you don't need to, you don't need to learn anything. You know enough to get a grade, and you'll probably have WASPA somewhere. Okay, good. But look, hedonism is the philosophy of life that says, what is life all about? Life is all about maximizing your pleasure and minimizing your pain. Why are you going to all this philosophy and all this stuff? That's what life's really all about. You want to maximize your pleasure, and you want to minimize your pain. All right? So, but for the hedonist, it's just pleasure. Go for it, baby. Get them, maximize the pleasure. All right? They don't focus on the other because it's obvious, If you avoid pain, that's a form of pleasure. But it's just, go for pleasure wherever you can get it from. Don't worry about the next day or whether somebody's husband or brother will come and kill you or something. Yeah, you go for pleasure, go for it. Okay? Epicureanism tells you that's stupid. All right? You need to be an intelligent hedonist. The intelligent hedonist will use their mind to see how they can maximize the pleasure and minimize the pain every time they're making a choice. All right? And to think long term, not just short term. All right? And it becomes, in the modern world, utilitarianism. That's why the word utilitarian there is very important. So hedonism, Epicureanism. Epicureanism is the individual, each one for himself. Okay? Utilitarianism later on becomes hedonism, Epicureanism, but now taking into account that how can I be happy if most of you are not happy? And so therefore it's still, they say, pleasure and pain are the masters of our life, but an intelligent person will calculate that if most of you, this is the democratic thing now, if the majority are not happy, how can I live in a society that I have to live in and be happy? So therefore the utilitarian will later on tell you, do everything the Epicurean tells you, be an intelligent hedonist, but factor in the social effects of what you're doing. All right? So there's no altruism in it. There's no concern for the polis or the society. It's just being more and more intelligent of what is it that factors into my happiness and my pleasure, my maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. This is the hedonist, Epicurean, utilitarian trend, which is probably the most popular one in history, all right? That's the one that people really go for a lot. Well, who wants all this search for truth and all this, pain to get truth and sacrifice and these Oedipuses and these philosopher kings? The philosopher comes back down to the polis and all the other martyrs and people who sacrificed themselves. They were stupid. Now we're so intelligent now. We don't need to do that. We can just, use our minds properly and maximize everything, maximize the pleasure of the maximum number of people. That becomes the code for utilitarianism. Always choose an intelligent way, whatever choice you're making, to calculate, and they had a calculus for it, to calculate how you can maximize the units of pleasure and minimize the pleasures of pain, and it can be done mathematically, they hoped, and all of this. So this is the story of Lucretius, what he represents. He represents this hedonist, Epicurean, that. Now he puts it into a scientific guise, and so you can be fooled to thinking that this is science, all right? Scientists have taken things from him, because a very intelligent man, and a very useful thing to look at the things he does, he talks about. But to call it a philosophy, to call it scientific, as we should by now understand what that word means, what that term should mean, not just as a slogan and as a flashpoint for the marketplace and theater and drama, but rather that basically I'm sorry, I'm getting caught up with myself, and I know you're getting caught up with me, but I'm trying to do a lot in one session. So basically the idea of Epicureanism is primarily avoid anything that gives you pain. What are the things you fear most? You fear most death. Okay? Socrates has said, if you're living a good life, why should you fear death? If you're living a bad life, why should you expect goodness? Just purely rationally speaking. He doesn't say there is anything. He doesn't, the Socrates does not say, I have a proof for the fact that, this will happen. But he says, since we're thinking about it rationally, why on earth should we take all this crap about Hades and about Enkidu's dream? And, if you're living a good life, then death will either be, you'll stop existing, or it'll be a nice long sleep. But if there is something that's going to happen, it should be like life, a consequence of what you do. Your life is basically a consequence of what you're doing. All right. So if there's an afterlife, a rational afterlife, Socrates, I'm not afraid. what he wants to do is to go on cross-questioning everybody. That's what got him into a mess in Athens. He tried to motivate them to think seriously and come out of the cave. All right? So this is the death is that. Now, death, therefore, is, for Lucretius, remember, take monotheism out of this, by the way. If you've got to understand this culture, you have to understand each culture on its own terms. When you study monotheism and another thing, you'll see what hell and heaven might mean there. Here, hell and heaven are what you've seen. What happens to people in Gilgamesh, what happens to people in Hades with the Odyssey, all right? And Socrates is coming and saying, why should you go on believing in this sort of a thing? And philosophers before had been trying to tell them that, but now it becomes a powerful motive. Why should you on earth, as a rational human being, why should you believe that? I mean, that's crap, for rationally. Everybody's going to go to the same place. Whatever you do here, if there is something, if you say, this is the virtual if there is something logically and rationally, then it's going to be a consequence of what you do. And so if you're living a bad life and you think you're going to have some kind of heavenly life afterwards, as most of us think. But on the other hand, if you're living a good, the best life you know how to, following these things, knowing your limits, knowing that knowing your imperfection, knowing that you don't know, then why should you expect that at death you're going to go to some place, something horrible is going to happen to you? Full stop. So death. Epicurus comes along and he says, the whole thing has to be understood in terms of the way the world is, the cosmos, all right? We need to reinterpret the understanding of the cosmos, of the polis, and of the individual. Those three things on my stupid fly sheet for Oedipus, those three things are at the heart of every worldview you will ever study. The view of the divine, the most ultimate powers in the cosmos, here in the Greek world, all right? The polis, human society, humanity, all right? And Apollo's two commandments, if you like, how to live the best possible life you can live to get the best possible fruit out of your life. Those two commands, all right? And Sophocles, the priest of Apollo, is presenting Oedipus as a model of this, but within the realism of a tragic view. Okay? Plato is redoing this, but within the view of a goodness world. Remember, the world is rational, the world is moral, the world is good for Plato. So the cosmos the view of the cosmos has shifted from the tragic to the rationalistic. But it's the search for goodness and truth and justice and morality and humanity. Epicurus is now marketing the Greek philosophy of Epicurus, materialistic. There's no afterlife. All this stuff about afterlife is bunk. All we are is a collection of atoms that are falling down in empty space. Matter and the void. My wife, who was a philosophy student, when I met her, this is what she believed about life. She got high distinction when she graduated from here in philosophy. When I first met her, everything is matter and the void. Well, that expression this was 1970, 71. That can help you to understand. There's nothing but matter and the void. And basically, what is the cosmos? The cosmos is a free fall of atoms. So you see why scientists like this, because you start to speak in terms that scientists use. But is the whole thing a science or a scientific view? No, it's another ideology, but using scientific language, that's fine. But you need to separate the use of the language of science and whether it's telling you whether this is scientific, because the true scientists are the Aristotelian thing, right? They're seeking truth wherever it leads you, right? Here, we have the truth. Come to me, all right? I will give you the truth. This is for Epicureanism and Stoicism, the two Greek philosophies that became very important in Rome, all right? Come to us, follow us, all right? Park your investigative mind on the side, and you will be happy. Why? Why is it so important? Because flash back now to the first page, so we get the context. The context is so important for text. Right? Basically, we have moved from the Greek polis, a relatively small community of humans, to the Roman Empire. All right? When you move from a polis situation to a cosmopolis, humanity, the whole cosmos is your polis. When you were a citizen of Rome, they considered you a citizen of the universe, no longer of just this city or that city or that city. There's a shift, there's a paradigm shift in the way you're thinking about life. All right? And so basically, the two philosophies that became very popular in such a world were Epicureanism and Stoicism, because first of all, they had intellectual content, so they attracted intellectuals, but they promised you a goal, happiness, peace of mind, all right? That's what people want. So let's look at that phrase from, let's first look at the phrase from Epicurus in the back there. Vain is the word of a philosopher which does not heal any suffering of man. For just as there is no profit in medicine if it does not expel the diseases of the body, so there's no profit in philosophy either if it does not expel the suffering of the mind. This is the whole point. Suffering is the focus. How can we get away from suffering? This is the pain. The pain that we experience is pain, physical pain in the body and anxiety in the mind. And so philosophy should primarily focus on that. The Socrates, the Platos, the Aristotles don't give you such a nice remedy. They tell you, seek the truth and you'll get it along the way. You'll get your happiness, you'll get your peace of mind along the way. It'll come as a side effect of your search for truth. Here it's telling you, we have the truth. And so Lucretius calls Epicurus a prophet. He's the one who brought truth to mankind. And now I want to help you understand it. That's what Lucretius' work is. I want to now help you to understand the prophet Epicurus who brought the truth for humanity. And this is the truth. Everything in the cosmos is just simply atoms falling down, and then they swerve. All right? And when they swerve, they come together. And when they come together, you get a something. You get a thing. You get a me, a you, a tree, a cockroach, or whatever. Or you get things from this swerve. That's all there is. The gods are just pure Epicureans. Because they exist, and they appear sort of in dreams and in visions, but what are they? They don't give a damn about you. You know, they're not waiting to see whether you're going to go to hell or heaven or police the order of the cosmos, as in Hades, as in Homer. They are pure models of how a human should live. They live for their own comfort. Right? They want to get entangled with humans and have to judge them and things like that. So don't worry about the gods. Right? Forget about the gods. These are the things that put fear into polytheistic societies. All right? There's so many gods, and you have to be careful of this one and that one and that one, and you have to sacrifice your children sometimes to them to keep them happy, and you never know what you're going to do. So he's trying to get rid of this superstition, which Socrates and people before him, philosophers, tried to deal with. Okay? And so in his own way now, Lucretius, following Epicurus, is trying to give another way out. The Socrates way out is what I tried to help you, about the gods and about death and about all of that. Now, Lucretius is telling you, that is too, that's just too much. That's just going to give you pain. To do philosophy, that's painful. You have to recognize your own ignorance. You have to, you have to do things no, just simply use your mind to recognize, don't worry about the gods. Don't worry about a hell or a heaven, all right? There's just this world, atoms in a vacuum, atoms in the void. And they swerve. Now, why the swerve? The one thing he adds to Epicurus, because Epicurus tends to come out fully deterministic, and he thinks that's a problem too. If you think there's fate and that you're determined, that's going to give you suffering. Maybe I'm going to turn out to be like an Oedipus. So he's trying to tell you, what is it that bothers you? Put it all aside, all right? It's a belief system. Okay? There's no proof for it. If you believe that, then you try it out. You see, by the fruit of it, you'll see. Try out my way of life, and you'll see. If you get the happiness that you're supposed to get, then you'll see. If you don't, well, you can commit suicide. So both Epicureanism and Stoicism preach suicide. You weren't in control of. You were born. You weren't in control of the particular circumstances you came into, but you can be in control of your way out. And so if you're not finding happiness through Epicureanism or Stoicism, you can say bye-bye. You can commit suicide. So these are things you can't run over. These are the main things in what's happening culturally and as civilization develops. Don't just take the things that are packaged out of them. That's what's wonderful. They all contribute something that people can then take out and develop. But this is not science, right? This is simply another philosophy of life in comparison with the pre-Socratics, Plato, Aristotle. Epicureanism is that. So you can read the things in there about the gods and about the human being and about society, but live basically, look at the conclusion on the second page there, first of all, before I come back to the first page. Sorry, I'm having to just pick out things from this fly sheet. Where it comes to, not the last one, but for the Epicureanism, it's on the page. They should be numbered. They're not. Page 1, 2, 3. On page 3, before we get into Stoicism, the final thing about the conclusion, if you like, about the whole sort of ethos, the whole spirit of it all, the whole understanding of human life, the tragic spirit, Plato's out of the cave spirit, the goodness spirit, whatever. Now you have the spirit of this Epicurean way of philosophy of life. What is happiness? Happiness is pleasure. Happiness is not truth, like Aristotle. It's not the freedom of truth that makes you happy with Aristotle. It's not the freedom of seeing goodness and using it for the polis of Plato. Happiness is simply, purely pleasure. Follow your nature, and by your nature basically is wanting to, make yourself happier and follow the pain and pleasure thing. That's, follow your nature. That's your nature, you see. Not like what Thucydides tells you, what anybody else tells you. Pick the day. Make the most of each day. Don't think about tomorrow. Live for today. Get the most of pleasure and the least of pain for today. Live life day by day and live hidden. This is the main thing. Live hidden. It's a reactive philosophy. It's a runaway philosophy. All right? Avoid. Friends, make sure you choose them the type who won't give you any trouble, who think like you. All right? Choose your friends very carefully. All right? Society, what's happening in the polis and in the world and all that, forget about it. Avoid politics. Run away from politics, for heaven's sake. So move away. It's a runaway kind of philosophy of life, which claims that this is the best way. This is realism. You see, that's how. If you really want to be happy, if you want peace of mind, Pax. If you want peace of mind, all right, and you want free, then follow our recipe. This is a recipe for happiness in a global world. In a global world, you stop, in the polis, there's more time for leisure, there's more time for focusing on truth and on this. When you're lost in an empire, in a world, a global world, then you can understand how this kind of philosophy will be much more attractive. So people are searching a medicine for the mind, for anxiety. How many people today are suffering from anxiety because they've been thrown into this global world, many more than when the world was sort of less. So for you to understand how these things happen, how the context is so important for understanding a text, and for understanding another culture and understanding another person. So this is primarily the Epicurean way. Now, I only have 6 minutes, but Stoicism is what you'll get primarily through Virgil. Virgil is not a Stoic as such, but within the epic, and I hope you all focus on that epic. If you're going to not focus on both, then do focus on because that's the true Roman work. Lucretius is a Roman adaptation to make it sound like you have free will, because I don't want to, determinism can also be, give you suffering. So the swerve, he adds the swerve to Epicurus. That's the only thing he really adds to the Epicurean philosophy. That was too deterministic. Now the swerve means, you see, there's a random element in life. There's a free, so that's your freedom. So don't worry about being determined. With Stoicism, it's back to the more classical view, the Greek view, from the Socratic and Plato view, back to that, and Aristotle. It's back to that, but once again, packaging it not into a lifetime search for truth, but rather we have the truth. All right? So the Stoic will tell you, the truth is follow us, and to follow us, don't follow these Epicureans. That's a great recipe for misery. All right? The true thing is to develop your mind in the right way, the way Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle had been doing that. But they didn't give you a full formula for happiness. They just told you to seek the truth, and as you seek the truth, you'll be as happy as you could possibly be. The happiness comes as a side effect of the search for truth. Right? He said, no, we have the truth, and the truth is going to make you free. So the Stoic truth is taking elements from from that aspect of Greek philosophy, but now codifying it. And it's going to be very interesting when you come to Virgil and the Roman epic, the Aeneid, because the Romans now were basically a republic, and they had great virtues, and that's what you'll be seeing next week with the lecture on Virgil. But now they flowed into the Greek Empire, and now the Roman Empire. What they found was there was something in common. The Republican Rome, when it was a republic, were tough-minded, serious, all right, following orders and rules and all of that. Okay, so this philosophy flowed into the Roman Republic to give next week Virgil a way of expressing why the Roman Empire now rules the world and why it can lose it. And that's, hopefully you'll get that in your discussion of Virgil, because there are very nuanced things in Virgil. But Virgil is giving you a Stoic view through Aeneas. Aeneas is going to be the model of a true Stoic, embodying the Roman Republican virtues, but they happen to coincide with the Stoic virtues. And the Stoic, so it becomes a philosophy. What was just a cultural thing in the Rome now can be put into the Stoic philosophy of life. And the Stoic philosophy of life is that the cosmos is good, perfect, providential, rational. All right? That's the first thing. So against the Epicurean who says it's just a jumble of atoms. No, it's all, and you'll see the items on, if you look at after this lecture, look at the things on Stoicism, and it's the exact opposite of Epicureanism. But they both say, we want happiness, we want peace of mind in the Roman Empire. Remember what they're looking for. How can you get peace of mind? Anxiety has become such a problem in the world today. All right? Well, in that world, going from polises and relatively small groups into the Roman Empire, where you're now a citizen of the universe for Stoicism. You're no longer just a citizen of Athens or Sparta, the polis, but now you are a citizen of the world. You're of the cosmopolis. And so when you come into that kind of a situation, well, these philosophies become more attractive. But the Stoic one was telling you, you can't be happy and have peace of mind unless you do your duty, unless you have courage, unless you seek to benefit mankind, to build the empire, to be a somebody, not a nobody. You see, the Epicureans say there's no difference between a somebody and a nobody. Right? No, in the Stoic view, they say no, there is a somebody. All right, and the somebody is the Stoic, and the Republican virtues that come from there. That's a somebody. The rest of those Epicureans and anybody who doesn't follow that is a nobody. And there's a problem of faith. I want one last thing. The problem of fate and free will. My God, I've been in this for over 50 years as a philosophy student, a teacher, and all of this. Please, just think of this as you go on. Is Homer confused about whether there's fate or that he is giving an excellent description of human life, partially determined, at the same time free? This free or that comes into when humans think they can package human truth into formulae. Am I determined or am I free? Habibi, just describe your life and live your life and think about all this. You'll see that you understand Homer better, you understand Gilgamesh better, you understand Thucydides better, you understand this. It's not that simple. All right? We're determined and free. And so we want to see what is the free aspect in any philosophy that gives us. All the others are telling you freedom is to be a somebody. Whatever is your culture telling you should be doing and to help humanity and to do the best for yourself, that's the somebody life, all right? The nobody life is the Epicurean life, where, well, somebody and nobody crap. It's just get the most out of your life, and then you're going to disappear. You come back into atoms. You come from atoms, and when you die, the atoms will disperse once again. And don't let anything bother you. So if you want to put it into this somebody nobody thing that we got from the Homer and then on into the other things, hopefully you'll see that. That's what these things are trying to tell us to consider. Not to believe, unless the Stoic and the Epicurean. Consider your own humanity as the cave story tries to present it to you, as Oedipus tries to present it to you, as Thucydides tells you about your own greed and fighting reason all the time. And then Epicurus, is which one is giving you more of what you think is a good description of life. So fate and determinism is only the headache of philosophers and theologians and I don't know what, who want to put everything into a nice, neat little package so you don't have to think. You think out of this box, you'll have to get into coming out of the cave, resisting, pushing on, knowing your own ignorance. You have to be like an Oedipus, refusing to take any things and at the cost of the polis, but insisting for truth. You have to do whatever that means to you in your own life today. All right, that's the somebody life, the message of this particular 201 course. And the other thing is that, well, okay, that's if you think there are somebodies and nobodies. But what if you think there's no difference between humans? There's no somebody, there's no nobody. There's just a stupid human and an intelligent human. And the intelligent human will follow Epicureanism, Stoicism, all right? This is what's happening in this thing in a global way. And you want to study these things specifically, you take them in courses in philosophy. We don't sort of do what philosophy does. This is the big difference of what this program is all about. We try to find basic things in each of these cultures to see the flow of human thought, human ideas, human interaction, and try to get more cultured this way, more intelligent, more knowledgeable. We don't just live in the 21st century and just the way we think now is the way. Well, we're right in the bottom of the cave of Plato. To be in every period of history, to not get into this thing of thinking now you are so much more intelligent than everybody before you. You may be in terms of science and technology, but as a human being, finding meaning in life, there's been no difference in the challenge for the human ever since Homo sapiens came into existence and start to think and reflect. That's why we go from Gilgamesh to Hawking and Edward Said and others, to see how people are asking the same questions, but basically answering them in different ways, but dependent on what came before them. That's why this program was so important when it was 201, 202, 204. You see how people are benefiting from what came before them. Tradition, the human legacy, earth, as opposed to traditionalism, where you focus on one thing and you stop, and that's the truth. Oh, that's the truth. Now we have it. Now we have it. This is the message of Plato's cave. So any other things about Plato you can study in a philosophy department, but don't miss that part. Don't miss the part of what Plato is telling you. If we want to get out of the mess of a corrupt democracy, if we don't want to continue to have Peloponnesian wars and history repeat itself, then we've got to do something about it by using reason properly. And to use reason properly is coming out of the cave and the symbolism of what he's doing. So thank you for your attention, and it's up to your teachers to do what they want to do.